It's what you do with your teeth, it's where you put your tongue. It's a shape of your lips, let's make it fun. Phonical stars. Put your tongue. Phonical stars. Phonical stars. Shape your lips.
Hi everyone, it's Katrine back, and this is module 2. We're doing phonical star fun. We're moving on to an activity that I call auditory discrimination, or this is where the children need to learn to tell the difference between the speech sounds. So it's tuning in their ability to hear those critical features that make these speech sounds different. Now that's easy for us because we've got mature auditory brains, but for some of these children they've actually struggled to develop that part of their brain, and these sounds can sound the same, they can sound murky, and they're just learning to hear them apart. And for other children doing this activity, they're learning to match it to the letter. So what you'll need for this is you'll need to record this sheet that's the Phonical Star Literacy Program record sheet. And this is the green section down here. And what you'll see is there's 4 different activities, and they're tied together with these posters that look like this, these A4 sheets like this. And they're a sheet that's got a scatter of the phonical star characters and their letters. Now, we're going to be doing 4 different tasks. One are going to be the consonants with the pictures, the consonants without the pictures, so the letter only. Then we'll also use the vowels. This one here, the vowels with the pictures and the vowels without the pictures. So there's a space on this guide where we can fill in the details of the activity once we've achieved it. And what you'll notice is there's a place to put the date, that's the little clock. Then there's the time. I like to time all my activities because even though a child might get it all correct, they may take forever to do it. They may actually need a long time to achieve that. And it's that length of time that can really hold them down in the classroom, or that might be because they've got problems with scanning the information, or they may actually be so far off track that they're not getting anything done. So I do like to time, and then the time clock as well, I think, holds them into the task, especially for those children who struggle with attention. There's also a little cross here, and what that is to indicate the sounds that they're consistently making wrong, so we can then keep some sort of graded evidence of how well they're doing on the task, because some children might just have one mistake when another might have 10 or more mistakes. So this keeps us very, very on top of knowing where they're at with their program. So really simple task for this one, once you know your speech sounds. So what you do is you get your Genie Gems, which have been given to you. If you don't have Genie Gems, I also sometimes like to use Play-Doh, and I just roll up a blob of Play-Doh and stick that on, and that's really great for those kids who we're working with some sensory processing skills, and they tend to fidget with everything. Because sometimes I find that the kids that we use the Genie Gems with, they might knock their sheet and everything just scatters. So I find just by having a blob of Play-Doh, for those kids, not only does it keep their hands working, so they love that, but then they can just pop it down onto the sheet and it sticks. So just an alternative idea for some of those parents, especially your children who are on the spectrum. So what we do is you say the speech sound, but don't say it using the gestures. So you don't want to cue too much, because we want their ears to actually do the work. They want to be really listening to the difference between those sounds. So for example, you'll say k, and then they've got to find that character. G. Okay, and you can continue through until they achieve all the sounds on the activity. Now, what I do is have a graded level of support. So for some children, you just say the sound and they do very, very well. For other children, you do need to actually then provide the gesture because they actually cannot hear the difference between those sounds. So for example, you might say and they've put down so they're actually having trouble hearing the difference between those sounds. So what you can do then is use the gesture that you've been learning through the program, and this makes a huge difference to the children. But I do like to, in the group, teach them that when they're doing spelling activities with their teacher, they're going to have to look at the teacher's face, because some of the speech sounds you actually can't hear the difference between those speech sounds. For example, when I was actually recording in the studio with Big Note Production to produce some of this material, I was recording each of the sounds in, and we were recording ch, or, like this. And when we went to listen to them back, the engineer couldn't actually hear the difference between and it was only because of the order that I knew which the sounds were. So just be really mindful of that for those children that have got an F for TH substitution, like your thumbs, that if they're not paying attention and they're not looking, and their social skills might have challenges, such as if they've got ASD and they're on the spectrum, then that can explain why they're not actually attending to the specific details of what those words are. And that's going to affect their pronunciation of their speech, but it's also going to affect their spelling, and especially for words that they haven't learned yet on their spelling list, and these might be words that they're trying to spell for the first time. So I always remind kids to look back at the teacher when they're having their spelling tests. Okay, so that's basically this activity. So once we've done the picture side, which uses the phonic all-star character to cue them to the letter, they then turn it over and they're doing it without the cue. However, it is still cued because there's colours attached to the letters, and some of these children are quite nifty and they remember the border and the colour. Now, that's not an accident. I actually made the cards all different colours for that reason, because some of these children need that visual support to even, first of all, with the character and the colour, to then be able to remember this abstract shape and what sound it connects to. Just be really mindful that we know these letters, so our mind has these codes put in for us already. But if I showed you a set of Chinese symbols very quickly and gave you a sound for each of those Chinese symbols, I wonder how you'd go joining it together to create a word. So that's what it feels like for these children. The abstraction of these symbols can really floor them, and that is especially for children who have trouble loading in the auditory sound. Those children, they have trouble storing the difference between those sounds, and then also kids who have got problems with their sketchpad visual memory. So these are kids who have trouble burning in that actual letter pattern or those graphemes. So, and a lot of these children can have actually problems with both of those skills. So that's where the project, the Phonic All-Star project, really bridges that gap, because these kids can really hook into the character to help make this association between their auditory with what the sound sounds like, their visual with what the grapheme looks like, and then the colour, and more importantly, the other two winged keeled features of the program, which is the gesture, which is really easy to learn, as you probably learned by now from doing the movie. Okay, and then the last feature, which is actually the character story, which may seem like it's just this extra bit that I prattle on in their therapy or in the group, but believe it or not, it is actually one of the largest hooks of all. So what that does is creates all this storytelling and semantic information that actually hooks in to that character and into that character's sound. And
it's what you do with your teeth, it's where you put your tongue, it's a shape of your lips, let's make it fun. Phonic All-Stars.